Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for bearing with me. Just a couple of technical difficulties, but now I think we're all straight away. So we're very excited to be doing this Java for the Soul. And today we'll be dealing more, as I mentioned last time, we're dealing with the holiday of Shavuos, and a very fascinating topic. And the topic is the Book of Ruth. So there's a tradition, and it's brought down in the code of Jewish law. A long-standing tradition has became part of Jewish law that on the holiday of Shavuos, we read the Book of Ruth. Now, there's every holiday, there's a specific book that we read, right? During the holiday of Sukkot, we read Kehelas, and we read different books. On Tisha B'Av, we read Eicha. And today, on the holiday of Shavuos, we read the Book of Ruth. The question is why? What's with the Book of Ruth having to do with the holiday of Shavuos? And more so, we have to understand that what is the significance of the Book of Ruth, right? Why is there a whole book for Ruth? Megillah Esther, or the Book of Esther. We understand the whole miracle happened through Esther, right? She's the one that saved the Jewish people. And the book goes really through the whole story line of the Jewish people being in the exile, and the decree, and Haman, and Mordecai, and Esther was the main one to save the Jewish people. She put her life on the line. So it's called the Book of Esther, and we read it on Purim. That's a story. But what's with the Book of Ruth? What does it have to do with the holiday of Shavuos? So let's just give a quick recap of the Book of Ruth, right? Just to know what we're talking about. So the Book of Ruth, right, starts off with there was a famine in the land of Israel. And Elimelech and his children, right, and his two sons and his wife Naomi, right, they leave Israel. They go to Ammon. They go to the land, neighboring country, to escape. Now, I don't want to go into all the details, right, because that's not the purpose of today's class. Right, but there's many things. Was he the right thing to do that he left, or was the wrong thing to do that he left? Interesting discussion. He was considered one of the leaders. A leader shouldn't leave during a hard time, but that's a different discussion. So his two children marry two Moabites, right? Ruth and Orpah, right? Not Oprah, right? But Orpah, right? And they marry the two of them. Good marriage, not good marriage. Don't want to get into it. That's not the discussion for today. They both die. Elimelech dies. The end of the day, Naomi says, I have nothing here anymore, right? And she travels back to the land of Israel, right, after the famine was over, right? She lost her property, she lost her land. It was a terrible, terrible situation. So Ruth and Orpah, right, travel along with her, right? They say, well, come with you, right? They were dedicated daughter-in-laws. As they were getting closer to the land of Israel, Naomi says, no, you don't have to, right? You don't want the hardships of the Jewish law. Back and forth. After 3 times, Orpah decides she goes back to her family, and Ruth continues. And then the rest of the story of the Book of Ruth continues with the dialogue of Naomi and Orpah being part of how they lived in the land of Israel. They went to collect, right, wheat and leftover grains and wheat in the fields, and goes to the whole storyline of how what Ruth did, and then finally talks about how she married Boaz, right, who was a cousin of Elimelech, and the whole storyline of her marrying him, and then the end ends off with that King David came from Ruth and Boaz. Right? And Ruth was a great-great-grandmother of King David. And it goes through the liturgy of King David that he came from Ruth. And that's really a quick, very short story of the Book of Ruth. So it's a beautiful story. It's an emotional story. Right? You could say it has passion in it. It has conviction. It has idealism. And it has a tremendous amount of lessons to learn. But the question is, what does it have to do with the holiday of Shavuos? What is the connection to the holiday of Shavuos? What are we supposed to learn from reading the Book of Ruth to the idea of receiving the Torah that we do on the holiday of Shavuos? And that's what I want to talk about in today's class. Right, the connection in between the Book of Ruth, right, of Ruth, and the holiday of Shavuos. All right, Chag HaTorah, right, the holiday of receiving the Torah. Right? What is a connection in between the two? So to really understand the connection, right, we have to understand a little more about Ruth. We have to get a little more of understanding of who she was, right? What was her strength, and really, what are we supposed to learn from her that connects me to the holiday of Ruth? So the most simple explanation, right, and it's brought down, and it makes a lot of sense, is that, hey, come on, Rabbi, why are you making such a big deal out of this? Ruth converted to Judaism, right? And she accepted the Torah and God and all the things that goes along with it. Shavuos, the holiday of Shavuos, we receive the Torah. It is sort of the final step of the Jewish people becoming a nation. As we spoke about before, the holiday of Pesach is like the engagement, and the holiday of Shavuos is the marriage. Right? Jewish people becoming a nation, accepting the Torah, accepting everything that goes along with it. So that's why we read the book of Ruth. Ruth accepted the Torah, accepted all the mitzvot. The Jewish people accepted the Torah, accepted all the mitzvot. Very simple, very nice explanation why we read the book of Ruth. And that is 100% correct. 100% correct. On the most simple level, right? There's a very easy and a great way of explaining why we read the book of Ruth, why we read the book of Ruth. Very simple. Doesn't mean to say that there's a depth to go ahead and try to understand a little more, to really learn a little more. So let's leave that on the side. We'll get back to that, right? Some of the difficulties of Ruth, some of the things that we're supposed to learn from, right? But let's try to understand who Ruth was and who Orpah was, right? To sort of see the difference, the clash between these two sisters, to truly understand, right? And to truly learn from them. So let's analyze this for a second. Ruth and Orpah, the Midrash tells us, right, and it's really hidden in the book, they were no just simple Moabites. They were princesses. They were from royalty, right? They were from the echelon of society. They had almost everything. They go ahead and they marry the sons of Elimelech. Elimelech was a wealthy man, right? He escaped from Israel not to lose his fortune, not to get bogged down from people bothering him for money or food, right? He was probably part of the royalty in the society. So the match was made. But then Naomi went down in society. Her husband died. Her children died. She had nothing. And to the extent that she decided, I got to go. I got to leave. There's nothing here for me anymore. Ruth and Orpah, at least in the beginning, Orpah, along with Ruth, said, we're gonna go along with Naomi. We're going to go along with her. Think for a second. What allegiance do they have? What purpose do they have to go along with Naomi? They're Moabites. They could have stayed. They could have gone back to their father's house. Their husbands are dead, right? Their father-in-law is dead, right? Naomi has no standing, no nothing, right? There's nothing for them, and they still decide to go along. There's something called loyalty. There's something called saying that if we try something, we're going to stick it out. That is a very powerful message, but there's something more to it, because loyalty only goes as long, right, as there's something behind that loyalty. There is a conviction to the truth behind that loyalty, something that's rooted in emes, in truth. Because now let's take it a step further. After Naomi tells him, hey, listen, you know how difficult this is. You guys really want, we're going to go back to the land where we have nothing, right? There's all these laws, all these restrictions, and a lot of the laws in conversion we actually learned from the book of Ruth. She said, are you guys really serious about this? Loyalty goes so far. Orpah eventually says, you know what, you're right. I can't do this. I can't do this. It's too much for me. And she leaves. We'll talk about her in a minute. Ruth, on the other hand, stays. What is the difference between Ruth and Orpah that Ruth stayed and Orpah didn't stay? The difference is that Ruth is loyalty. Ruth's conviction was based on her belief, based on that she believed that there was something actually here. It wasn't just blind loyalty because of her mother-in-law. That dies out. It eventually dies. Right? Too hardship, too much difficulties, peters out. But it was based on truth. It was based on her true belief that the Jewish nation was the right nation, that God was the right, God of the Jewish people was the right God. And that her true conviction of a relationship with her mother-in-law was not just out of emotion and out of good gesture, but it was based on emes, the truth of what she believed. And therefore, when something's based on what you believe, on emes, and not just out of emotion, out of good gesture, out of goodwill, that endures all hardships. That endures all difficulties. And therefore, that's why Ruth was able to overcome the challenges. Ruth was able to take it the next step. Where on the contrary, Orpah petered out. Now, she gets some reward for sticking out that long. I'm not going to go into that today. But eventually it peters out. There's a tremendous lesson to learn from this. And lesson number one regarding why we read this on the holiday of Shavuos. We sometimes get, even with our religion, or whatever level we're practicing, wherever we're holding, we so many times can get involved and get emotionally attached to it. We could get, a good gesture involved with the practice. There's an emotional. There's just a family, and there's an idea of culture. And we get involved in something, even Torah, even mitzvahs, the holiday of Passover. Right, giving charity, we do it out of good gesture, and helping other people, making sure we're good and righteous people. Customs that we do. The end of the day, we have to remember that when we do things, not because of the core of the idea, because we believe that this is what God wants us to do, things eventually peter out. And if we're doing it out of because it's culture, and this is what our parents did, that's very important. And don't stop doing it because of that. But let that be an avenue to reflect on what you're actually doing and making sure to find the truth. Because over time, even what we're doing because our family did it, or it's our culture, or because it just feels right, it peters out. Maybe now with your generation, the next generation, as history shows. People's grandparents did a lot more than they did themselves. And it continues going on that way. If we don't put emes, truth, into the actions that we do, eventually it peters out. Eventually it dies out. Maybe not all of it, but some of it. That is something very important. The holiday of Shavuos, which represents a relationship with God giving us the Torah, represents us becoming a nation, represents us recognizing that God is the one that gave us the Torah. It wasn't made up. It wasn't something that just happened. That is something that we always have to remember, that we have to infuse truth into it. We have to remember this every time we do a mitzvah. Even, of course, we should feel good about the mitzvahs that we do. And of course, we should feel emotional about it, and we should feel spiritual about it. And we should be doing it because this is part of our heritage and part of our culture. But the underlying purpose while we're doing what we do is because that's what God wants us to do, because it's the emes, it's the truth. Because if we don't have any emes in it, it'll peter away. It'll be an Oprah. It'll be an Oprah. Move away. Be gone. Arpa moved away. To the extent that once she moved away, the Talmud tells us, Midrash tells us, she went totally to the opposite side. Totally to the opposite side. And I don't want to get into that today. So there's one very important idea to remember. Excuse me. One very important idea, one extremely important concept to learn, that we have to make sure that we infuse truth, emes, into why we're doing things. And that's what's really behind Ruth. Now, this idea of loyalty, right, is an important thing. Right? So we mentioned that one of the ideas was that she had loyalty, right? She had loyalty. What is this loyalty? So Ruth said to Naomi, where you die, I will die. Do not continue to speak with me. Do to me, and more also, for only death will come between me and you. The loyalty that Ruth had was to the extent of that she said, we will work this all out together. We are sticking it together. We're not gonna separate. Don't worry about it, right? We are truly gonna make sure that we stick this out. Death is the only thing that will separate us. Why did she have to go so far? What was the necessity to show the power of her conviction for loyalty to such an extent? Commentaries say something so powerful and so beautiful. They say that we have to reflect on this for a minute. Who came from Ruth? King David. Why did King David come from Ruth? Many Kabbalistic and spiritual and deep concepts behind it. I don't want to go into that right now. But commentaries say that a king, a leader, has to have an ability to truly believe in what he's doing and to have and be willing to put his life on the line for his subjects, for his loyalty to his community, to whoever he's governing. To that extent, a leader has to be a leader that has that power and that level of commitment. The Torah, the commentaries say that Ruth showed that within her genes, she has reached the level of loyalty, of making sure that she's going to take care of Naomi to the extent of the only thing that's going to separate us is death. Why is that something that's so powerful and so important? Why does the leader have to have such, listen, I'm taking care of you guys, but why does it have to be to such an extent? Say the commentaries that when one is, and again, this comes back to the holiday Shavuos. What is the power of the Torah? When one sees something that is true, when someone realizes that this is the only way, there's nothing that will stop him from trying to make sure that the truth comes out. What stops us from being totally dedicated, and I'm talking to myself, right? Each one of us on our own level, is that we're lacking, and it's part of our struggle and part of our struggles in our times, right? We're lacking to a certain extent the truth. And we believe God gave the Torah. We believe that the mitzvahs are true. But to an extent of real truth, to the extent that like we really believe it, it's hard. It's hard. We're living in difficult times. We don't see God, right? We have to think about him and we have to learn about him. And each one of us on different levels. But when we truly believe in something, we'll go all the way. We'll go all the way. We'll put every effort into it. We won't have anything stopping us. What Ruth was trying to show was that she truly believed, right, in Naomi. She said, your God is my God. Right? She truly believed in this concept of that Hashem, Naomi's God, which our God, was a true God. And she said, I want to show you so far that the only thing that's going to separate us, my loyalty is so strong to this Judaism, only thing that's going to separate me is death. I'm going to go all the way. And we see that she did. She belittled herself. She had to go collect in the fields of other people. It's one of the most demeaning things of having to go collect in other people's fields, and one should never know about such things. But she was willing to go ahead and go endure all difficulties, right? Endure all difficulties because she believed in this. That was the power of King David. King David had also a very difficult life. King David stuck to his guns. He didn't let other things determine what he believed in and what he didn't believe in. That is a sign of a true leader. A sign of a true leader is when you believe in something and you believe in the emes of the truth, you'll go all the way. That's why Ruth came from King David. And that's something that we also have to learn from Ruth. for our relationship with the Torah. We have to remind ourselves that we have to be willing to give up on things. Number one, we spoke about, right, the concept of Ruth, right, seeing the truth, right, and going to the truth, right. That's number one. And when you have truth, you endure, right? You endure. When you don't have truth, and the actions that you do, right, will fall apart. Number two, what we're saying is, once you have that, and one of the ways for us to build that is by willing to give up on other things for the Torah, for the truth. By saying that, you know what, I'm not going to go to my favorite restaurant anymore because it doesn't follow with my dietary law. It's so much easier. It's so yummy. It's financially easier. You're right. Ruth gave up a lot. You want to show that you're doing the truth. You want to show that you're connecting to the mitzvah because of the truth, not because of culture, not because of family heritage or whatever it is, which are all important things, and utilizing that to build oneself up. You have to give up on things. You have to give up on things. That's how it is in everything. You want to get a good degree. You think interns in law firms or interns in hospitals, you think they're able to go out every night? Some of you know a lot better than I know. You give up on things for a little bit to be able to get to a certain place in life. So you have to give up on things. You have to be in the hospital or in a law firm working hours upon hours and not even get paid so much. You can't go out that often. You can't hang out with so many friends. For anything that you want to truly connect with and you want to strive in it, you have to give up on other things. There's no difference in Judaism. We really want to connect to the Kabbalah, the Torah, to the receiving of the Torah. We really want to connect to this energy that we believe is emes, is truth. We have to give up on certain things. And it's not easy. Of course it's hard. And we all have our different challenges. And each one of us on our own level. And it's not all or nothing. Like we spoke about this morning, the morning minute. It's growth. It's one step at a time. But we have to be willing to give up. That is one of the greatest lessons we can learn from Ruth. She was willing to give up her commitment. She said, the only thing that's different between me and you is death. I believe, and I'm willing to give up on other things for what I believe in. That is a tremendous lesson. Something very powerful that we all have to reflect on. Again, each one of us on our own level. Sometimes it's refraining from doing something, and sometimes it's doing something. If you believe in community, you believe in the power of community, so then yes, you have to be part of the community and be part of it. You believe in Judaism, so then yes, you have to give up on certain things. It might be financially more expensive, it might be easier, more convenient. But we give up on a lot of things. Why not give up for God? And that's one of the ways to show that you believe in it. And when you believe in it, and then it stays in your family, and it stays within you. It won't be like ARPA, where it dissipates after a little bit. We'll be like Ruth. So one thing leads into the other. One thing leads into the other. It says in Proverbs, Mishlei, many women have achieved valor, but you have surpassed them all. Says the Midrash, this refers to Ruth, who entered under the wings of the Shekhinah, of the divine presence. Right? What is it? Why is this referring to Ruth? Right? Many women have achieved valor, but you have surpassed them all. Right? There's many ladies throughout history that have achieved many things. We said Esther, right? We have Sarah, we have Rebecca, we have Miriam. We have many great women in our history. They've achieved tremendous things. Why is Ruth referred to the one that have surpassed them all? Achieved valor. And the answer is, like we just said, my friends, right? Because true valor is doing something because you believe in, And of course, all the other great women also did. But Ruth changed her whole life around. Right? Ruth showed true dedication. Ruth was holding on such a level in the secular world. She went so low in the secular world, and she didn't let that stop her. That is valor. True valor is when you stick to your guns and you do what you believe in. And, you know, I want to go a little off topic. It's connected to this idea. Once we're talking about Ruth, right? So we know that Ruth was dedicated to her mother-in-law, right? We know Ruth was dedicated to God. And we've spoken about these different attributes of Ruth. There's another great attribute of Ruth, right? Which is all connected in all this. It says that the Midrash tells us that when Ruth went to collect the wheat, right, in the fields, it says all of the women would bow and gather, right, bend down and pick it up, while Ruth would bend her knees to gather. She would bend down and gather, right? What's the purpose behind this, right? Says the commentaries that Ruth was very concerned about her external appearance and modesty. Right? Ruth was very concerned about her external appearance of modesty. Now, why am I bringing this in? Of course, it's a great idea, a great purpose, right? Modesty is a great thing to have, and men and women are supposed to have modesty. But say the commentaries, and I've always, it's something that I've always, thought about, and something that has always inspired me. That how do we know if someone is truly doing things for the right reason? How does one know for themselves? How does one know for themselves? And the answer is that when all their actions, even things that are not necessarily related to what they're, focused on, what they're preaching about, or what their greatness is, but all their actions that they do, even things that seem mundane, even things that are not connected, collecting wheat for food, even the small little things are all still within relationship with God. All still with calculation of how to make sure that he or she, right, are making sure that they are on a standard with their relationship with God. And this small gest, not saying that bending down is not modest, right? Could be they've been wearing the most modest clothes. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a nuance in modesty, right, of bending down. And we even know now, right? Right? You drop something, bend down and pick it up. Right? Even a man, bending down and your whole body is in a different position. But it's a nuance. But Ruth, and the Midrash points it out, Ruth was very concerned about the nuances. Because in the nuances is where we see if the person is reaching a level of where it's a truth and not just something that they're doing, which is a level. But this higher level of truth, of doing it for the right purpose, for the truth, we see it in the nuances. We see it in when most people are not looking. We see it in when, the spotlight's not on you, right? That's where you see if yourself, where you're holding, right? And if you need to know about other people, not necessarily our business, right? But at least ourselves, of where I'm truly holding. So I want to recap these 3 points that we spoke about, right? And we'll end with this. Number one, and one leads into the other. Number one, we spoke about, right, 4 points. Number one, the first thing, the main purpose why we read the book of Ruth is because Ruth converted to Judaism and she recognized that the Torah is the truth, and the Jewish people on the holiday of Shavuos joined the Torah. And that's, without a shadow of a doubt, the main reason why we read the book of Ruth. But we delve deeper into 3 more points for us to grow from and to learn from the book of Ruth. Number one, right, the difference between Ruth and Orpah, right? Ruth and Orpah both in the beginning they had that conviction of joining and the will to join Naomi. What happened? Right? Orpah left. Ruth stayed. Why? Because Ruth had the purpose she was doing it is for the truth. She didn't do it because it was the in thing. She didn't do it because she felt bad. She didn't do it because it was culture. She didn't do it because of X, Y, and Z. She did it because she believed in it. And when you do something because you believe in it, even whatever level of belief, there's at least some belief in it, that stays. That stays within you, and it stays with your family. But when you do it because of a different purpose, so maybe for you that feels good, and for you, you like the culture, and for you, emotionally, it reminds you of your grandparents, being in your grandparents' house. But for your children, when you get older, other things come about, other distractions, falls apart. Falls apart. So we have to remember that we have to work on putting truth, every level. Each one has some different levels. We have to work on putting truth in the Torah. We have to in our mitzvos, in the things that we do, to infuse truth in it, that it stays with us and stays with our family. That's number one. Number two, we said, what is this high level of saying that Ruth said, her dedication, right? King David had the same level of dedication, leadership. The thing that will divide me and you is death. My God, your God, stayed convicted and stayed the dedication and giving up so much. And we said, how do we know? What is step number one of knowing that we are working on the truth? That we're doing it because of the truth? Because that's what God wants from us? Because that's what we believe? Is when we're willing to give up on other things because of it. Ruth gave up a heck of a lot. And she went down low in society, collecting food from other people. Hopefully we should never have such a test. But we have our own tests. Financial, emotional, easy, hard, things that don't fit in our schedule or not. Pirkei Avos says, right, don't push it out because you may never have the chance again. But we do it so many times. I'm busy, I have this, I have other things to think about. I have this and I have that, and we all do it. Having a chavrusa, coming to classes, doing a mitzvah, keeping Shabbat, kosher, whatever it is. When it's easier, when it's financially this and that. We have to be willing to give up on things. And it's one step at a time. It's not all or nothing, but we have to be willing to give up on things. That's what Ruth did. And that's how she reached such a level of dedication. That David HaMelech, King David, came from her. That's level number two. And that's how we see also that we are working with the truth. We're building our truth up, and it's another way of building that truth up. And number three is in the nuances. In the small nuances of things, are we keeping what we believe in the nuances, when other people don't see, in the small little details? So who cares, if it's this kind of matzah or that kind of matzah? Makes a difference. Some matzah is not baked properly, right? Who cares if it's a lemon or it's an esrog? If it's a breed, really, I can just buy from the market. It's not a mitzvah. You can say that's not nuances, but there's certain nuances. What kind of kosher? What not kind of kosher? Where do you get your tefillin? Where you don't get your tefillin? And somebody, oh, Rabbi, yeah, I got tefillin. I got it from Amazon. Do you know, why are you getting it from Amazon? Call me up, right? If I have a question in law or in medicine, I'll call you up. I'm not going to look it up on Google and buy it on Amazon. Right? So there's nuances. I can figure it out. The nuances. The nuances are so important. And that we saw from Ruth, that she bent her knees instead of bending over. Yes, a lesson in modesty. Bending over is not such a bad modesty thing, but it's the nuances. Those are three important things to remind ourselves, right? As we're ready to receive the Torah, to learn from Ruth. And that's why we read the book of Ruth on Shavuos. That we want to connect to the truth. We want to connect to the Torah. We have to, first of all, right, connect with the truth. Number two, we have to be willing to give up and sacrifice. And it's not such big things sometimes, slowly but surely. And number three, focus on the nuances of our lives. Wishing everyone a beautiful day. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to stop the recording now.